CJ Wildheart. We're here today because we're going to do a little bit of a different thing. We will talk about all the usual bits and bobs at the end, but we're going to go through 10 of your Castaway Classics. So on my show, these are the tracks that people pick. Now, they only get 3, so you're very, very lucky because you can take a full suitcase of these songs onto your completely not desert island, nothing to do with that kind of feature at all. But yeah, we're just going to go through a few of your 10 of your favourite kind of songs, why they're important, whether they're nostalgic, whether they mean something, whether they're just good tunes. And I'm very excited to hear what you've picked.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to start then. The first track you've given me is Fishbone and Ma and Pa.
Well, that's from well, I think it's like if there's one album I'm going to pick by Fishbone, it'll be Truth and Soul, which came out. I think it was about 1988 the album came out, but
you're 1 year out. It was
is it
1989.
89, right? There you go. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But actually that's the year me and Ginger formed the Wildheart, so 34 years ago. There you go.
Oh my
But
God.
that album is it's just brilliant. But that song Ma and Pa is whenever I've heard it, it just puts me I'm in a good place, and it's a ska song and you can't help but when ska comes on, people who don't like ska are weird, you know?
Oh, you can't
Really
beat it,
strange.
especially
You
at a
don't,
festival.
yeah,
Ska
you don't.
tracks
I
are the
mean, you don't have to
best.
be a fan of ska, but that beat
Uh-huh.
just gets you going. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like people who get angry when they hear reggae. You're weird. Huh?
I didn't think that was a possibility.
I think it's normally people who are into country and western get angry when they hear reggae. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't want
Yeah.
to know them.
Well, I've seen Fishbone once actually as well, and they're really they're such an energetic kind of band. As you say, they're very infectious. I feel like you
Mm,
couldn't not like that kind of song. Although the content of that song is apparently because it's written from the point of view about a family who are a couple who are splitting up in the
yes,
child and the
yes,
custody, and it's
yes.
quite a serious kind of
But,
you
yeah, but
know.
that's the art. When there's something really clever about writing a song that's very up and gets you on your feet, but it's got such a dark subject to
Mhm.
it. And they could have wrote a really morose, depressed, heavy rock song, and they didn't. It was an
Yeah.
upbeat ska song, and it's so catchy. It's so catchy. It's definitely in. I've got 5 songs I'll probably play when I leave this mortal coil and when I'm about to
Mhm.
be cremated, and Ma and Pa's on that list. Yeah.
Wow. Thanks for bringing us down there.
Hey, no, I don't see it as long as you lead a
Yeah.
good life and you're fortunate enough to go grey, you
Mm.
know, when you
Hmm.
do pass, it should be a celebration because you've made it
Yeah.
to the grey age. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. So it is a great track, so we'll listen to that right now. So next up, you've picked a track by Cardiacs. Now this is called Is This the Life? Tell us a wee bit about that.
Well, I mean, Cardiacs are a really important band for me because I mean, just the early Cardiacs, the original Cardiacs line. I mean, John Poole
Mm,
was in the Cardiacs for 15
yeah.
years. Unfortunately, they weren't their best years. Made a
Not
really good album
directly
with
because
them.
of him.
No, no. I mean, John's an amazing musician, but I mean, I think most Cardiac fans would agree. There's a lineup of the Cardiacs, a classic Cardiacs, where
Hmm.
it was the lineup that I got into them. It's a lineup where John got into them, and it's just
Yeah.
they made 3 or 4 albums, but Is This the Life was the nearest they kind of got to getting in the charts, and it's probably the most accessible Cardiac song because they do prog out and they do have some very
Hmm.
weird timings and chord progressions, but it's such a
Hmm.
beautiful song, they're just a really important band to me. A lot of my ex-band mates, they're really influential and
Yeah.
probably one of the best bands I've ever seen. I saw them at the Marquee I think it was about 1988, and to this day, it's still one of the best shows I've ever seen in my life. It
Hmm.
really, really just changed the way I looked at bands and the way they are live
Yeah.
massively.
It's actually quite weird because apparently it was a demo that they released in 1981, but then it appeared on the album A Little Man in a House and the Whole World Window, catchy
Yes,
title, in 1988. So
yes.
yeah. But I must say that was one of the ones I've I've wanted to listen to Cardiacs. I've wanted to get into them because I really don't know much about them, but it's difficult because, well, on Spotify, there's not much, so I haven't accessed as much Cardiacs as I should. But I'll really like this track.
Yeah, it's a great track. Beautiful
It's
song.
I'll do a bit more research into Cardiacs. So we'll have Cardiacs. Is This the Life Now? Okay, so CJ, we are galloping through your choices. We're on to number 3 of your Couldn't Live Without tracks. So we've got The Clash and Safe European Home next.
Yeah, I mean, it's off the album Give 'Em Enough Rope, but that just celebrated its 45th anniversary, like on
I
Friday.
know. I
Yeah,
looked at 1978. I was like,
yeah.
oh my God.
And I became a Clash fan in my later teens, and they're just again a really important. I absolutely love their first 3 albums, and uh, um, I think my favorite Clash song would be "Stay Free," which is on this album as
Uh-huh.
well. But it's a Mick Jones song. I love it. I love it when Mick Jones sings. His voice is so different to Joe Strummer.
Hmm.
But I mean, Safe Europeans Home. I mean, it's just brilliant. The subject matter is great. It's really poignant, and it's just you can't fault the Clash. Again, you get some punk rockers who say they're not punk. You guys go and listen to country.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day,
Reggae again. Go away.
well, you don't need to have a genre. You don't need your music to be in a compartment. Do you know what I mean?
It really does my head in how snobby some fans can be, and I mean if it's got a tune and it's a good song, I'm gonna like it, you know.
Mm.
I mean I do struggle with certain types of music. I think people who guess like country. I struggle with country.
Mentioned
It's not
that.
I just struggle. I don't like cowboy hats or cowboy boots much. I don't know if that's enough to put you off a type of music.
Hmm.
And I mean, my 2 least favorite instruments, and please don't kill me. Number one is the bagpipes. I don't like that.
Right, that's it. I'm going off here.
I find it really intrusive, the bagpipe. It's not a subtle instrument. And sometimes you don't want to be on 10, you know what I mean? And a bagpipe can't do two.
No,
It's 10 or nothing, isn't it, with a bagpipe?
come
And then
on.
the other
I'm
one is
Scottish, and even
yeah.
I would be the first to say it's not exactly a sort of therapeutic sound.
I mean, if you imagine if you're going out for dinner on a date and you wanted some soft music and someone started playing the bagpipe, that'd kill it, wouldn't it? You couldn't go all Barry White, could you, with the bagpipes? It doesn't work.
Especially the tuning up bit at the start. Oh my
I
God,
know,
that's
I know.
no
And
wonder
then
it's called a drone.
the other instrument which really gets on my tits is the classical guitar.
Oh,
Can't
okay.
stand it. Can't stand it. Proper classical guitar. I
Mm.
call it smug guitar because it sounds really smug, the sound of it. And I can every time I hear it, I just imagine this really smug guy with a wax moustache just playing his lute and just looking all smug. Yeah, there you go.
Oh dear. Well, I'm glad we've got that out the way. And any classical guitarists listening, don't be offended at all.
Yeah, be offended. I think you're smug.
So, next up, a track that I know very well and a band that I absolutely love and I've seen a few times, The Interrupters. And you
Mm.
picked out Friend Like Me, which comes from the eponymously titled, I like that word, The Interrupters from 2014. So why is that on the list?
Just the album's brilliant, and when I uh is it Take Back the Power? It was the first song I heard by them, and
Mm.
I got God, that girl's got a good voice. And then I saw a picture of them. I went, God, she looks great. The band looked
Yeah,
great. I love the look at the band. They look like the Specials or like
yeah.
Madness. And
Hmm.
and then I listened to the album, and it just every song on there I love. And that song, my little boy used to sing it. Like, yeah, all the time. Yeah, he used to sing it,
Oh,
and we used to
cool.
like sing it in the car, and he used to sing it to me. So
Oh,
it's great that my little when he was like 3 or 4, and he'd be singing that song to me, and it just used to melt my heart, absolutely melted my heart. And I love the band. I think they're
yeah.
really really good. Yeah.
Yeah, again, as you say, the whole sort of vibe of the band, I've seen them live. They're brilliant. Her voice is great as well. It's so sort of strong yet melodic. And they did a cover of a song. I don't know if you've heard it, the one by Billie Eilish. They covered Bad
I
Guy.
did. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a brilliant cover. It's just, I mean, it could be their song, you know, I don't even hardly
I
remember the
prefer
original.
their. I prefer. I'm not a fan of Billie Eilish.
No.
I prefer their version. I mean, she's really good, Billie Eilish, but the whisper thing gets on my nerves a bit
Hmm.
sometimes. It's just like, I just sing full voice. Stop whispering,
Mm.
you know.
But that's
Not
what I love.
everything, you know.
That's what I love about a good cover, though, is that, you know, you do sort of like, you don't just think, oh God, there's that cover of Take On Me again. You know, you kind of think, oh, there's that Interrupter song, and you forget that it wasn't them that did it. But it's a great,
It's got
fantastic
that
version.
great it's got the trombone solo in it as well, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah,
The riff
brilliant
is just so
trombone.
good on that.
Yeah, really good.
Is so yeah, so that's fantastic. So that was Interrupters, A Friend Like Me. You've picked out Satchel and Mr. Pink.
Yes, yes. So Satchel, the singer in Satchel was a guy called Sean Smith, and he passed away a few years ago, and he had a few bands. He had another band called Brad, which
Okay.
was with Stone Gossard, the guitar player from Pearl Jam,
Oh, okay.
and he had a band called Pigeonhead as well, who I loved, and um he has one of those voices. Is he changes style a lot, but his voice kills me. It's so good. He's
Hmm.
such a if you listen to like the stuff. I mean, Pigeonhead are more of a dance band, but I mean the stuff he does with Brad and the stuff in
Hmm.
Satchel. There's the album which came out after this. This album's on. It's called Idiocy, EDC,
ADC, yeah.
Idiocy,
Hmm.
and I think it came out in '94. But
Correct.
the album afterwards called The Family, and God, there's some songs on there. I mean, his voice, just if I could sing, I'd want to sing like this guy. And he's a
Yeah.
huge Prince fan as well, so there's a
All
lot of
right.
soul in his voice. But I just love the song, and it takes me back to a really. I discovered this band because I had a band called Honeycracker who was signed at Sony, and the guy who did our press at Sony also did this band's press
Ah,
as
right.
well. And he said, "You've
Hmm.
got to hear this band." And he gave me this advance of it. And I just fell in love with Sean Smith's voice. I mean, it
Yeah.
just takes me back to a really, really good time.
Yeah.
And you know, when I was in Honeycrack and just takes me to a really good time. And you know, it's
Yeah.
great when music does that.
Absolutely. Because as soon as I put this track on, as I said, I'd never heard it before, but it's got a really like identifiable Seattle sound, I
Yeah,
think, you know, because
yeah.
I obviously checked where they were from. And it's kind of like doom grunge kind of, but it's
Very
very
melodic though. Yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
I mean it's not music to go crazy to. I mean it puts you in a very relaxing mood. But
Uh-huh.
I was never a grunge fan, and the thing with Sean Smith is the soul he had in his voice. That's
Hmm.
what put him apart from, because
Yeah.
grunge isn't soul-y at all. You know,
No.
I don't think of soul when I think of grunge. But
No, I
Sean
get you.
Smith, he sings a lot of gospel. He used to sing a lot of gospel
Ah,
as well. And you can hear it in his voice. You know, he's
uh-huh.
a yeah. But anyone from Seattle will know who Sean Smith is. And the first thing they'll
Yeah.
say is the guy had the most beautiful voice. Yeah, it's, you know.
It kind of strikes me as it's probably like a kind of best kept secret because, you know, plenty of bands you don't know a lot of the stuff, but you've heard of them. I literally hadn't heard of them, but I will check out the stuff actually because I like the sound of it a lot. So it's very good. Cool. Next track, I've got Rancid and Olympia WA.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, come on, it's Rancid. I mean, everyone loves Rancid, doesn't it? You know, when I first heard Rancid, I like the kind of they try and sound like the Clash sometimes, and I love it. I love it. I love it, and I think it's great that they wear their influences so like vibrantly on their shoulders. And
Uh-huh.
but it's Rancid. I mean, they do a really good impression of a British punk band, and you can't help. They're infectious.
Yeah.
You can't help but like Rancid. They're just such a brilliant band, and
Oh,
they're
uh-huh.
just real characters. And there's some they're good players as well.
Yeah.
They're good players. They, you know.
The other thing as well, though, is that they've had 12 studio albums at the time I was reading this. And I find that obscene. Now, I can't imagine that there are 12 Rancid albums because really, probably the only one I know well is And Out Came the Wolves, which
Yes.
is
Yeah.
what this track comes from. Um, but the other thing that struck me, and I know the song and I've listened to it loads, but it never struck me till I was thinking about it in the context of this interview. I thought it was Scott Sorry. It like
Yes.
literally. It was
Well, Scott,
frightening.
Scott is heavily influenced by them. I mean, that sound, it's a very American sort of sound,
Hmm.
but you can't, they're just one of those bands, people really
Hmm.
like. I mean, there's a reason why, they toured this year and they played, Wembley Arena.
Yeah,
They're like a
yeah.
staid punk band, and there isn't many of them. So, you know,
Yeah, it was a fantastic song, and as I say, that album is definitely the one to get. I've got it on vinyl not that long
yes,
ago, actually.
yeah.
Cool.
Every band has a album, you know,
Hmm.
and it's good. Every band has one album, and yeah, if you're going to listen to an album from Rancid, it'll be that one.
Yeah, totally. Okay, okay. Now, I find this quite amusing. You've picked out Descendants, I'm the One. And it's quite a long track for Descendants. It's 2 minutes 15.
Yeah.
So why is
Um,
that in there? And is it this particular song?
no,
Why
I
does
mean,
it resonate?
Descendants are like my favorite punk band.
Yeah.
Like if I had to pick a favorite British punk band, it'd be The Clash. American, it'd be Descendants. They're
Yeah.
really influential, and I've been into them since I was a teenager, and
Uh-huh.
I'm lucky enough the guitarist Stefan is a friend of mine now
Ah,
as
cool.
well. And Stefan and Carl, the bass player, they discovered me via a mutual friend, their artist Chris Sherry, who I knew him like we were young teens together,
Yeah.
and he does all their artwork, and he got them into the Wildhearts,
Hmm.
and we become friends, and it's
Hmm.
great when you become friends with people you really admire and look
Uh-huh.
up to. It is really good. I'd be like a Kiss fan becoming friends with Gene Simmons. You know,
Yeah.
I've become
Yeah.
friends with like Stefan he's just, and they're so, you wouldn't have Green Day, you wouldn't have your Blink 182s if it wasn't
Hmm.
for the Descendants. They're like one of the most influential American punk rock bands, and they
Yeah.
wrote that punk pop formula. I mean,
Hmm.
it's them. They're the band,
Uh-huh.
So you can't fuck with the Descendants ever.
No.
No.
But I mean that they formed in 1978. And
Mm,
then this track I think was from, well, I had 1998, then I found something else and it said 1996. But they're still churning them out,
yes,
quality
yeah.
tracks.
Yeah, I mean they still tour like relentlessly, and
Mm,
they sell out everywhere, and they're just a really cool band, and they got
yeah,
great songs, amazing
yeah.
songs.
So would you go and play with them if they asked you?
Yes, I've supported them.
Oh,
I've
cool.
supported them already. I had a punk rock band called the Jellies, and
Mm.
I supported them in London. They
Oh,
asked me to
cool.
come and support them,
Awesome.
and they've asked me to come and sing on stage with them a few times,
Brilliant.
which I've just bottled it. Unless I got a guitar on, I can't. I'm not like a front man. But yeah,
Yeah.
they, they're just really nice guys, and when you have one of your favorite bands, they know who you are, and
Uh-huh.
it's great. It's
Yeah.
I'm not a fanboy. I haven't been a fanboy since I
This
was
is
been
how I
about
am. And you
probably
like my Instagram or
14.
something
But
like that. Right.
I'm a fan of the
Yeah.
Descendants, and whenever I get
Okay,
a message
cool.
from Stefan, I
Right.
still
Oh,
get a little.
yes.
Yeah.
So the next track you've picked out, and
This is just me
it's
and you,
brilliant,
to be fair. This is
is
how
The
I am, and you
Cars
like
and
my
Just What I
Instagram or something. I'm
Needed.
like,
So I'm
Okay, cool.
currently in the thought process of my next album, and which I want to start recording, and I should have started recording like a few weeks ago, but I'm just busy packaging, doing all that miscellaneous shit stuff
Yeah.
you got to do when you work on your own.
Yeah.
My new album's called 1980, and although
Mm.
this song came out in 78, I became aware of it in the
Hmm.
80s when I was
Hmm.
very young, like kind of like 12, 13. And I heard this on the radio, and I went, God, it just took me back to like the very early 80s. And I said, I
Hmm.
should maybe explore more of my pop side, because I do have a very distinct pop side. So I
Hmm.
am going to explore more of my pop side and that kind of new wave sort of
Hmm.
sound. And your Cars are like, they're a proper new wave band. They
Hmm.
summarize that new wave sound to me. Them and a few
Hmm.
handful of British bands and a handful of American bands, but it's definitely planted a seed, and I'm going down that kind of new wave
Yeah.
avenue
Well,
on my next album.
because it said that this particular track was inspired by Ohio Express I don't know who they are, but Velvet Underground. And when I read that, I suddenly thought, you can kind of see what they mean there when you listen to it, because I find it strange because it is poppy, but I mean, I would have it filed in my brain under sort of classic rock, but then when you listen to it, I kind of go, but it doesn't. So it's another one of these bridging the genre type bands,
It
type
is, yeah. I
songs.
mean, it's like new wave was it was an offshoot of punk, and
Mm,
so there's that there's a punk attitude to that song, and especially with Rick Ocasek's vocals as well.
mm.
His vocals are great. So I mean, I'm toying with the idea of covering it as well.
Ooh,
Yeah, yeah.
that would be
So
cool.
it's that those keyboards as well. I love 80s
Hmm.
keyboards. Absolutely, like so the 80s for me is probably my favorite decade of music.
Yeah.
I think the 80s shaped what was going to come and the way we are now, because you can't, you look at the 70s and there was a lot of I don't know, this granddad music, I call it. 70s. I mean, punk was for me was the greatest thing to come out of the 70s,
Uh-huh.
and but I love the look of the 80s and the sound and the way things kind of, bands look great in the 80s. I
Yeah.
thought, that there was a look, and it's a shame because by the time we got to the 90s, everyone looked like Blur. No offense, Blur, but
No, if you're
it's
listening.
not the most memorable looking of people.
Yeah. Yeah, I seem to think I mentioned that when I played this track one week, I said on the radio that I didn't know what was the instrument that was doing the do loo doo loo
Yeah,
loo.
yeah, that's it.
Was it a keytar? I
No,
hoped
it's a
it was.
keyboard. I think it's. I mean, it's a mono keyboard, but I'm not a keyboard expert, but it's probably a
No.
chord. Yeah, but it's
Uh,
definitely that keyboard.
uh-huh.
The main hook. There's probably a
Hmm.
guitar and a keyboard together. So, but
Uh-huh.
those eight, there's a distinctive sound to like 80s keyboards,
Yeah.
and I've on purpose set up a new studio just to kind of capture some of those 80s sounds and stuff. So I'm
Hmm.
going down the 80s thing. It'll probably
Hmm.
sound like the most modern album I've ever made, but it will
Yeah.
come from the 80s.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
80s inspired. My
Yeah.
favorite bit of that song, in fact, is the little bit where they change the time signature, that just that one little chunk near the end. But
Yes.
it
Yeah.
always plays with my mind. I'm like, oh yeah, right, and we're back. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just bizarre.
Yeah.
Cool, awesome. Okay, now here's another one of these literally mystery tracks. I'd never heard this. This is Turnstile and Mystery.
So Turnstile are like a New York kind of like hardcore band, and they've been around a while, but I was put onto them by Richie.
Hmm.
And it was a few tours back we were touring, and he fell in love with the album, and he said, "You got to hear it, hear this album." And I was always, when I was younger, I was into a lot of like New York hardcore stuff, and I
Hmm.
find they're a bit softer than some of the hardcore bands I was into back in the day, but
Hmm.
the album is amazing. But that I just they remind me of Richie. And anything that reminds, there's three things that remind me of Richie: this band, and cake, and
Cake.
coffee. Yeah. When sometimes when we were touring, me and Richie, touring with the Wildhearts can sometimes be the most horrible experience because things go wrong, and some of the members could be quite difficult. Yes.
I
I'm
don't know
talking
what you're
about me,
talking
of
about.
course, because you can tell how difficult I am, just by
Yeah.
how I'm behaving right now. I'm a diva.
Yeah,
Where's my
fucking
coffee? Oh, here it
nightmare, by
is.
the way.
Oh, look at this cup. Isn't it beautiful?
Rock and roll.
This is a difficult man's cup. You know, you ever see anyone drinking anything out of a cup with a kitten on,
Oh
avoid
yeah,
that person because they're
danger.
egoing out, they're a diva, they're very difficult. Yeah. Anyway, when things get a bit heady on the Wild Hearts tour, heady
Mhm.
is a good word. Me and Richie used to go off and get coffee and cake because we're rock and roll, and that's what
That's
rock
it.
and roll people used to do.
That's
And
it.
they talk about snorting drugs. You want to try snorting cake, you know? So that's they
Oh,
remind me of Coffee and Cake and
yeah,
Richie Battersby, who's the nicest wild heart
I
there
know.
is. Yeah.
I know. I had to laugh actually just on that topic because when I posted that little thing last night about doing the interview, Mark Whitaker, I think it was, came on and went, CJ, he's the nicest wild.
Yeah,
And I thought,
I owe him a fiver for
oh,
that.
that's awkward then. That's awkward. But yeah, so I didn't know this track at all, but it's quite a, I don't know, it's quite that sort of weird sort of glissando synthy sort of like start to the track, and then it goes into something totally different that I wasn't expecting from the opening bit. But yeah, interesting sound to it anyway.
You should yeah, discover them. They're a good band. I
Mm.
mean, they got a lot of traction as well. You know,
Hmm.
they've really kind of like opened up a bit, and people are really jumping on them as well.
Mm.
So, and
Yeah,
they're
cool.
interesting. They're from I think they're from New York. So I mean, it's you know they're cool.
Yeah, well, this was quite a recent. This was probably the most recent. Well, it is the most recent track that you've picked out because it was from. Well, again, I had a quandary here. It was either 2018 from an album called Time and Space or 2021 from Glow On.
Glow on, yeah, that's the one I know it from.
Mentions
Glow on,
Glow
yeah,
On, right? Okay,
yeah.
cool. Okay, so I'll check out a bit of Turnstile then. Right, so the last track that we've got here, and it's an amazing song. So it's AC/DC and Touch Too Much.
Yeah. So when it reminds me of being at school for starters.
Yeah.
And so I remember there was a school. I went to quite a few schools. I was a
Mhm.
difficult kid, didn't fit in. Used to try and set fire to buildings. No, I grew up in the army, and so I moved around
Mhm.
a lot, and
Yeah.
I went to about probably 7 different schools.
Mhm.
And at one of my schools in Munster in Germany, I
Mhm.
remember starting there, and a kid had a like a ghetto blaster.
Mhm.
And I remember starting at a school, and it was always hard starting at new schools. A couple of reasons. I mean, me and my brother always used to stand out because we were brown. We were the only brown kids normally in a school full of white kids. So we had to deal with sometimes, you know, it was a good job we could, you know, we were quite tall and you didn't take much shit. So
Yeah.
but it was always hard starting new schools. It just is, isn't it? When you're a kid, no
Yeah.
one wants
Of
to start a
course.
new school. So
Uh-huh.
imagine, you know, I went to like three primary schools, three secondary schools. It was
Mhm.
very unsettling. But I remember starting this one school it was called Edinburgh School in Munster. It was an army school.
Uh-huh.
And this kid had a getter blaster on, and I was feeling really uncomfortable. The teacher was showing me around, and he had a getter blaster on, and he was playing Touch Too Much. And as soon as I heard it, I went, I'm going to be all right here. So, and Highway to Hell for me, you know, I don't mind Brian Johnson, but Bon Scott, I mean, his
I know.
voice, I mean, and Angus Young's like my favorite lead player, you
Mhm.
know, and it just when I hear Highway to Hell, it just reminds me of a good time at school, you
Yeah.
know, and
Mhm.
I loved being at school at that time. It was great. All my friends were into rock or punk, and it was a really like it was just a really good time. And I remember, you know, when it was the anniversary of Bon Scott's death, everyone wore black armbands and stuff, you
Oh.
know, the
Mhm.
rockers, and it was
Mhm.
just really like really cool, a really
Yeah.
cool time in my life. And you know,
Yeah.
it's ACDC.
Because Bon Scott died. It was like 10 months after they released this album, wasn't it? It was the last
Yeah,
one that he sang on. But
yeah.
it's just a great listen from start to finish, that album, you know. But I must admit that's one of my kind of my favorite tracks. I would think of that. And of course, the reason that I always chuckle when I think of AC/DC is because in 1996, when you guys did the tour with AC/DC, I think that was the first time that I had come to see you guys because it was
I
only just,
wasn't. I That was the first time I'd been sacked from the band.
oh my God, right.
So
Oh,
I didn't do that. I
awkward.
was in Honeycrack. So when they were, I
Ah,
was actually on tour with I think either Weezer or Alanis Morissette. Yeah,
right. Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's pretty reasonable as well.
Yeah, I mean, I love AC/DC, but I would have. I mean, I saw AC/DC on the Back in Black tour in
Uh-huh.
1980,
Hmm.
and they were really good. But I'm a Bon Scott man. You know, I prefer him with
I think
Bon
it's
Scott. No
just
offense, you know,
no,
to Brian Johnson. I mean,
no.
he had some big boots to fill, and he filled them.
Yeah,
You know, but
yeah.
I mean, Highway to Hell. I mean, it's their best album by a
It
long shot.
is. It is most definitely. But yeah, but we well, you weren't there, but I'll just tell the story anyway. We basically watched the Wildhearts and then stood for about 20 minutes, watched a bit of AC/DC, and at that point I didn't really like AC/DC and just kind of thought it was a bit sad, all these old guys jumping about in denim jackets. So we left. And then later in life, when I kind of got more into my rock, I thought, why did I do that? But I since went and saw them at Hampden. So I've kind of, yeah, I've
Yeah,
made up
I've
for
seen
that.
AC/DC lots. I mean, I haven't seen them recently. I mean, you'd be hard pushed to get me to go and see any rock band. But I actually,
Mm.
I mean, I just actually was it yesterday I went to see a string quartet play Vivaldi's Four Seasons. You
Saw
know,
that looked amazing, wherever it was, but it looked lovely.
yeah,
Ah.
it was really good. The it's just I work with guitars so much, and when I make solo albums, they take me about 4 months to make, and I work on my
Uh-huh.
own, and I'm
Hmm.
just relentless guitars and listen to drums, and
Hmm.
so when I go out, I don't want to hear guitars, and I want to kind of chill, and
Yeah.
I listened to a lot of classical music, and it was really good. It was really good. So I'm looking for another kind of classical. I really want to go and see an orchestra or something.
Uh-huh.
And Vicky wants to go
Uh-huh.
and see the opera, so.
All right,
I don't
cool.
know. I've turned into like a proper old geezer, you know. It's good.
But this is why I really was, I followed your music career for all these years, but you kind of, you want to delve in and see what other sort of elements there are. And, there were a few surprises on the list. It wasn't just like all punk. It was, there was bits and pieces from different things, which I think is quite cool when you get to
I
kind of
mean,
get a little insight.
one of the reasons why there isn't much new guitar music in there is because I don't listen to guitar music much anymore,
Hmm.
and purely because of my ears, and so I tend to listen to a lot of dance music, classical
Hmm.
music, and like just contemporary pop music. But it
Hmm.
is so my ears aren't bad all the time. It's just
Aye.
it's just you if you're working with it, it's like a butcher. They don't go home and start fondling meat. You
Well,
know,
not all of them, maybe.
some of them might, but I mean, you've been working with meat all day. You probably want to
Yeah.
go home and have a bean sprout, you know?
Oh, well, that
Fondle that
takes us to,
instead.
oh yeah, that completes our 10 tracks. That is amazing. So we will listen to AC/DC Touch Too Much now. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much for doing that. But you're not off the hook yet, because we now need
Right.
to go over all the same things you've been talking about 50 times a day for the last 2 weeks. So let's talk about the new album, Split. How's things going? Are you happy with the way it's been received?
I'm really happy with the way it's been received. I mean, I work on such a small scale, and I don't have PR, I don't have a label. I have a manager, and it's me. And I put a shout out saying I needed some help here, just trying to get the album. And tons of people got in contact. I've
Mm,
done an interview with Classic Rock, and they're reviewing it. Viva La Rock are reviewing it. I've done
mm.
about 20, 30, 40 different podcasts, and I'm talking to you, and it's been really, really good, and people really like the album.
Yeah.
They
I
really
mean,
like
it's
it.
I mean, I've played obviously played Butterfingers, played the Kick Down the Walls one. I've still to do my own personal listening more than I have. I find that when you're doing radio as well, you're so busy playing everybody's new tracks and stuff that you don't actually sit down and go, right, here, I'll just listen. Although I might put
There's
my vinyl
so
on
much
this
stuff
afternoon.
comes out. It's relentless the amount of
Yeah,
stuff, and
it is.
every other person's in a band or a musician now.
Yeah, and you don't want to let people down because you want to like try and be reflective of lots of different things. But obviously, when it comes to yourself, I have to play these tracks with
Can
no
I
no
be really
question.
honest with you? Can I be really honest with you? I mean, I
Mm.
don't care if you don't listen to the album. It doesn't bother me at all. I'm not. I'm way. I mean, I send my album out to friends to hear, and half of them don't even play them anymore. Yeah, I mean, most of them won't even come and see me play live anymore. I've made
Mm.
so many albums. I've been playing, back in the day, yeah, they were always there, but they're older people now, and it's just like, so I never get hurt if I send a CD to someone and it goes in the bin. It doesn't bother me. It's like I'm not
Mm.
that precious. My ego isn't that precious, and
Mm.
it doesn't need to be stroked. Some musicians are so fragile,
Mm.
and you
Yeah.
say the slightest thing. I've made some good albums. I've made a lot of shit albums, and not just me, the bands I've
Yeah.
been in. Some of the
Hmm.
Wildheart albums are fucking horrible. I mean, that horrible thing we made in Europe, Chutzpah, can't stand it. Can't stand that album. It's not the songs, the sound of
Hmm.
it. It's fucking awful. It sounds like some Euro band, just everything tuned down. And
Oh.
Jacob Hansen's an amazing producer. He's just not a very good producer for a British rock band. And
Hmm.
I know Scott feels the same as well. When me and Scott first had that album, there were so many keyboards on it. We actually said you got to get rid of half those keyboards, man. We're not some Euro house band. I mean, it was awful. But
Mhm.
it, I'm not precious, so But so far, I've had such a positive response to the
Yeah.
album, and not be anything but happy.
No, well, it's great. And I nearly didn't get to listen to the vinyl because I came home, I went out to my recycling bin, didn't even know your album had arrived, and somebody had like planked it in there
That
with all
kit,
the recycling.
the
And it
last
had a
one,
little bend at the corner of the
yeah,
cardboard. And I was like,
right,
but it was fine. It was perfect.
yeah.
So I was so pleased. But fucking post office bastards.
Oh, don't even get me
Oh.
started on them.
What else? Oh yeah, so you clarified that you weren't giving away Lucille. Did somebody think you were? Was that why
I
you
think
did
some
that?
people do. I mean, they see the 335 shape, and they see it covered in stickers,
Yeah.
and I think I'm giving away like this vintage Gibson, and I mean, I'm giving it doesn't cheapen the guitar I'm giving away. It's a
No.
Hagstrom, they're beautiful guitars,
Yeah.
and it's a guitar I've used on lots of albums, and I've
Hmm.
used live, and so
Hmm.
there's some provenance there. It has a story. It isn't,
Yeah.
and I could have sold it, to make
Yeah.
some money, but I was given it, and I'm not desperate enough to sell guitars quite, just at the
Yeah.
moment. Yeah,
Hmm.
when maybe when things get a bit tougher, I'll get a job, and
Mm.
then if I can't get a job, I'll start selling guitars. But I just thought it's something really nice to give away, and it's an incentive to buy my album on CD and vinyl, because the,
Totally.
the, the truth is if people stop buying my album on CD and vinyl, I'll have to stop making music, because I
I
don't make
know.
it digital. No one makes, unless
No.
you're getting billions of streams,
Yeah.
you're not going to make a living from digital like
Yeah.
output alone.
I know. It's sad. It's sad but true. But it's a lovely guitar. So yeah, I hope I win. But might look like a fix now. um, is there anything else I was going to ask you? Oh yeah, I wanted to ask you one question. You don't need to answer it if you don't want to. Did you read Danny's book?
No, no, I haven't read it. I haven't been sent a copy. I think someone asked me if I wanted a copy, and I said no. It's like, yeah, it's just I'm not interested. The same way I'm not interested in any musician's book.
Yeah,
I
true.
haven't read one. I've never
Mm,
read any band's autobiography, singer songwriters. I haven't read one. I'm just not
mm.
interested. Not interested in a single musician on planet Earth enough to read any of their books. I
Yeah,
want to listen to their music, but I don't give a flying fuck what their story is. It's
yeah.
exactly the same as my story, exactly the same as that person's story. There's only so much musicians do, and a lot of bands mirror each other.
Uh-huh.
The only thing that's different is their hairstyles and their fucking shoes.
Hmm.
But it's the same fucking story. And
Yeah,
9 times out of 10, it involves drugs, and involves bands falling out. And, I'm just not interested.
yeah.
I've been playing in bands all my life. What the fuck do I want to read about another
I know.
band?
So on the same tangent, then you're not about to write a book, then, eh? You're not doing
Oh,
that. You were going to do a
absolutely.
cookbook. Did that ever?
I'd love to do a rock and roll cookbook.
Ah,
But no, I mean, there's no. Uh, does the world need another person cooking? There's so many cooks out there. It's just like,
I
and
know.
I don't. If I wrote a book, it might be similar to Danny's, with less drugs and more healthier eating and better teeth.
A a few more punctuation marks and
Yeah, and 2 legs.
oh bless, I know. Right, CJ, I'm gonna let you go. That was amazing. I will fire all this onto the interwebs in various forms. But
Brilliant.
thank you as usual for your time. It's been lovely.
Thank you. It's been a giggle.
All right, and I'll catch up with you soon. Oh
I
no,
said
yeah, you're going
I've
on.
been packaging. Can you see?
Oh, I know, man. Oh, bloody hell! It must be a nightmare, but
It
it's
is. It
good as
is.
well. It's
I got
bringing
to
in the
get it done.
pennies.
Vicky's at work, so I need to. I tried to not make my flat into a warehouse, so I try
Hmm.
and get everything done and then clear it all out. So I got a bit more to do. All right.
I
Well, I
know.
look forward to
All
doing
right.
this. It's been a
Nice to
it's
see
been a
you. I'll
good
see
one.
you. Yeah, I'll see you out on tour hopefully next year as well.
Yeah. I think I mean we're aiming to do some shows in April, so we're aiming to come up to Glasgow in
Great.
April. So I'm waiting. I'm
Fantastic.
waiting. I should be making announcements before Christmas about shows. So
Brilliant.
it's
Well,
coming. It's
I will
coming.
be there. We'll catch up then.
Brilliant. All right. You
Okay,
take
thanks,
care.
CJ. Cheerio.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.